This is a story from Lambton's past, not about Sarnia, but about Moore Township. Sometimes I think all of us would like to break away from social conformity and live a life alone without any responsibilities. Such a man was Josiah Clark, known by some as Old Clark, by others as the Hermit of Moore. Let's go back in time and visit with Roland Whitted, by now an old man. As a boy, he knew Old Clark. You ask if I remember Old Clark. I most certainly do. You know, I may now be advanced in age, but I still remember things well, especially if they happened while I was a young boy. Just sit back and listen. My mom, my pa, and me, and my sister moved here in the spring of 1839 from just west of Old Muddy York. For those of you who don't know, York was the original name of Toronto. From Old Muddy York, when I'd be about 7-year-old. My pa was granted land here in the valley along the Bear Creek. It was real tough that first year. Had to clear all the trees and build a cabin before the snows came. By the next spring, seemed everything be going well, till my pa and my sis got the fever. They only lasted a few weeks, and then they were gone, leaving Ma and me on our own. Folks hereabout would try and help, but they had their own problems. Seems to me the only person I knew that seemed to have no problems or concern was a man we call Old Clark. We first saw him a few months after my pa died. He dropped by and talked to Ma. How he knew about Pa's death, I never knew. All I ever found out was that he liked to ramble around and call on the few settlers in our valley, along the Bear Creek, and even out to the St. Clair River. He seemed to be well known around here. Seems like he probably wanted to be alone as much as he could. At least that's how he lived. When I followed him one time, I saw him go into what must have been his home, just something dug out of the bank of the Bear Creek and supported by logs. He even had some kind of door, outside of which there were 2 pine trees. Looks like they was planted there by someone. I didn't know it at the time, or perhaps they was put there just as much to protect him from his mysterious past as to protect him from the elements. For whatever reasons, when he wanted to, he seemed to be able to shield himself from the world at large, both natural and human. He was always dressed in what looked like rags. By the looks of him, folks might think he didn't even have a halfpenny to call his own. Well, I never know if it be true. Folks said that he carried a wealth of money around his waist, hidden in a hugger, which is what they called the money belt. Hidden in a hugger, what some folks call a money belt. I didn't need to tell you I had it. I didn't remember I put it in. Then the winter that I be 10 years old, we had the fiercest winter storm I ever seen in all my 70 years. It had stormed a night and a day before Ma and I heard a banging at the door. It was Old Clark. He looked like a snowman and was shivering so that Ma brought him in and got him fed and all dried out. It'd be not long before he lay down by the fireplace and go right to sleep. And here's where the only fire comes into any of my stories. A few hours later, when Ma heard a scream, she got out of bed and found Old Clark on fire. Sparks from the fire jumped right onto one side of his old raggedy shirt and burned one arm real bad before he woke up and started to yell. Between us, Ma and me was able to pull off the shirt and also took off his hugger, which was just beginning to get hot. While Ma was tending to his burns, Old Clark grabbed at his waist with his other hand and shouted out, "My hugger's missing!" Now, as a young boy, I'd never ever seen even one gold coin, let alone this many. He told me there were 82 of them there in his hugger, and that they were $5 gold pieces. A real fortune to folks like Ma and me. Old Clark pleaded with the two of us to please not tell anyone what we'd seen. After the storm abated, he went back to his life of solitude. Now, I never told no one, even after I married him.